everybody to my channel. This is Swinging It with the Whites. What we're going to talk about today is, now that you've committed to that PCS move and you want to do it in an RV or a camper, you know, what are the steps that you should be probably focusing on so you can plan it out? That way you don't have any stresses when it comes to the actual PCS day. What we're going to start off with is we're going to talk about the travel routes. How that entails is, depending on where you're going, you want to also make sure that you factored in the most ease of convenience as far as your drive. Now, if you're going to be going on these back roads, stuff like that, look into that as well. But if you're trying to find the most direct route and the easiest route for you, because if you were towing, again in my situation, you have a 43-foot fifth wheel with my entire rig. I don't know the exact measurements of it at the top of my head, plus with me not being with my camper, I can't really do that anymore. And I just want to make sure that I can make those turns, because with an RV, you can have a Class A with a full-size truck towed behind it, or you can have something like mine, where you have a 43, 45-foot fifth wheel, something really long, plus your actual truck that you're towing it with, and maybe you have the long bed box. That's another a foot and some change that you're adding to your vehicle, because I have a short bed. All that combined, you don't require a CDL. So depending on whether or not you understand the turn radiuses, you want to make sure that you're going to areas that can accommodate that. You don't want to be going through some small town where when you try to make a right turn, or you go in to your plan for your fill station because you need to fill up and you didn't plan accordingly, you may end up going through a small town with a gas station that really isn't easily accommodable for your needs. Maybe your camper can't actually fit underneath the overhang that protects it. There's a few of these factors that you want to go into, so thankfully Google Maps is a great thing you should look into. I mean, getting a street view, looking at that stuff there, also seeing if you've seen any pictures or anyone else has ever mentioned it. There are some really good apps out there that I've used, and I've got a whole entire list of apps that I actually go through to double check my work to make sure what I'm doing is actually going to be feasible for that trip. Now, the one thing that no one really factors, and I'll show you some videos here. If you look at that video right there, or photo, you'll notice people don't take into consideration the height of your camper. Standard heights, or the standard max height of your motorhome, should be no more than like 13 feet 3 inches. That's because that is the standard height of a bridge. If you come up on a low clearing bridge and you don't know your camper height, you're going to end up like this photo here, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to be in that situation where you didn't plan accordingly and you just caused your entire vehicle to be totaled. We're talking not even just the worst day, we're talking about probably the worst decade for you at that point. So no bridge clearances, that's a big one there too. So if you don't have to, if you're on the interstate, that's never really a factor, but if you're going down some small towns to go through whatever direction you're trying to get to, then you might have that problem. Now you also want to factor in, again, like I said, you have gas stations. What's really great about this is if you follow mainly truck stops, if you do that, there's like trucker apps and things of that nature, if you're really focusing on following what truckers do, then if you have a big setup, not like a tiny little camper that you can pull into the normal gas stations, but if you've got a big rig, pull into the truck area. The diesel has a high flow pump, so thus far your truck that maybe only has between 28 to maybe 50 gallon tank in your truck, you'll fill it up in less than 60 seconds, which is great if you're in that need. But let's be honest, you don't really need that quickness, because you're going to go inside, you're going to go to the restroom, you're going to buy some snacks, stretch your legs. That's what rest areas are for. It's not just to get back on the road as quickly as possible. Yes, that is the overall goal, but in reality it's to stretch, relax, and remember that it's not about getting to the destination, but it's about the journey. Once you're on this long committed drive, let's say you happen to have to fall asleep, there are many different areas you can go to sleep at. Our go-to, when I plan my trips, I usually just like to stay on the interstate as most as possible. So if that's the case, I'm sitting here, I'm driving it, or I'm at a rest area off the side of the interstate, pull into there, go to sleep. It's great, it's whatever. There's bathrooms there too, so there's never really a problem. Now, if you've already passed those rest areas, you've got truck stops as well too. Just be courteous, because these are people who are getting paid, and they have a set schedule. If you're going to go into one of these, follow the rules, know what the recommendations are. Do not be that person who doesn't know how to straighten out your vehicle in the lines. Now, if you don't have any of those accommodations, Walmart. You'd be amazed how many people park at Walmart. And Walmart itself has RV parking spots depending on that Walmart, especially if it's in a high travel tourist area. They've got that type of focus. Now, there's other areas you can do too. Maybe you have public lands. You've got RV campgrounds, obviously. Well, that'd be my youngest there. Now that you've factored in all those little tedious things before you even stepped into your vehicle to drive, how long is it going to take to get from point A to point Z? And then all the little letters or stops in between that to get you to your destination. Maybe, again, you want to take a scenic route. Maybe you want to go down a different area as far as things that you want to see, things you've always wanted to do. Make sure you've planned it all out, especially if you're military, because you have a deadline as far as PCS travel, and you have to get back to your duty station unless you're taking leave. So you've already figured out which base you're going to. Hopefully in that same time when you did your planning for your route, you've also planned for your living accommodations once you get to your next duty station. You know the base you want to go to. Thus far, you should also see if they have an RV campground on that installation. If they do, you want to make sure that there's a few things that are already ready or already established at that location, so that way there's no issues. One, availability. Do they set a priority for active duty, or is it open to all veterans and retirees, or anyone that's really on the installation? With that, if you do show up there with military orders, will you have a place that you can actually stay at? You want to make sure you can get a confirmation that not only will you be staying there, but you'll also be staying in the same spot for the most part. You don't want to be moving from spot to spot. And yes, I get it, with military you have sometimes a limitation as to when you are notified as far as your PCS, but a really good campground or camp host at that installation should try to do their best, especially for you are on installation. Active duty does have a precedence and a priority, but not only, they're not gonna go out of their way unless that's just something that they do. Again, with the travel aspect of it, you want to make sure, can you get on base? Obviously there's multiple gates at that installation. Which ones are open during certain times of the day, i.e. where is the commercial gates times? Because if there's other installations, for instance one of the last bases we were at, as you can see here in this image, it doesn't show you really well. I can't show like the feet, but I know that when I had my camper with my current setup, I barely could get around the Jersey barriers, and I'm a pretty skilled driver with towing. That's not an issue for me. But for the average person, if you're not really comfortable with it, you might end up in a situation where you may be stuck, or you can't or maybe go around the Jersey barriers, which may create a whole backlog of issues as far as security forces having to deal with you, shutting down the gate, trying to navigate and move you around, or potentially damaging your own rig. So know ahead of time as far as, hey, this is the gate that can accommodate for your needs. Now, when you're out there, what are the installation or that facility's amenities? Do they have Wi-Fi? Does it cost anything separate? Is it provided? Is there washer and dryers? Are they coin operated, or are they free for everybody? How many washers and dryers? Because let's be honest, not everyone has their own washer and dryer set up in their RV, and even if you do, it's not that big, so some like to take advantage of the actual residential or commercial size ones that are at the bathhouse there. Just little things to help ease, because everything that you do in your camper, you have to drain that. So if there's more stuff you can just let normal plumbing and amenities of the utilities take care of, then let that happen. You also want to ask what type of spaces that they have. Are they back-ins or are they pull-throughs? This can also be a factor depending on your setup as far as you being able to get into that spot. Especially with most back-ins, if it's a 90-degree turn, that is very difficult. The campground that I used to run, all the back-ends were in a circle spot, so you're actually not, you can pull straight and you're just backing straight up, which is very convenient. It does take away a lot of that stress of having to do a hairpin 90-degree turn, especially in an area where these roads and RV campgrounds aren't very wide. So you may not have that radius to turn all the way. Again, your expertise level will come into play in that regards. Depending on the time of night that you're showing up or how their accommodations work for the reservation, do they have an overflow lot? Something that you can pull into right away, or let's say they didn't have a space. Let's say the entire site or the entire installation at that campground is completely booked from this day to this day, and there's nothing they can do at this current moment. Do they have an overflow? That way you can pull out of your current spot and go to an overflow and still stay on the installation to fill that void of time, and then come back to the campground once that time, or once your reservation is up and ready again. So you want to ask for those things. How is the reservation system? A lot of campgrounds nowadays, they're trying to keep up with the times. Thankfully, the military is a little bit better in that regards, but do they do just online? Do they do phone reservations? Are they first come, first serve, where you just show up and the camp host writes your name down? You know, you want to figure out these type of stuff, so that way, if it is something that you can book a year in advance, that means other people have been taking advantage of that up to this point, and you just found out probably 3 months ago that you're going to that place. You want to take care of your situation as best as you can, and that is through making sure you've done your part, or your due diligence, and checking in on everything. Now you want to factor the actual nightly rate. Do they have weekly deals? Do they have monthly deals? There is the difference between peak season and off season, so there may be different rates there too, so you want to factor that in, depending on the time of year that you're actually assigned to PCS, how you can take advantage of those different rates to your benefit. Now let's say it is something, again, when it comes to winter season. If it is winter, what type of amenities go away during the winter? If you're in the northern states, do they have water still running? Or do they shut it off because the ground is frozen? If they shut off the water, do they shut off the water at the bathhouse and the laundromat there too? If they do shut off the water, is there a facility still within the campground, maybe at the actual office, something like that, where they have water that you can fill up your freshwater tanks too? So you want to figure out how can someone still live on the installation and be there during the winter months. So you have to make some compromises. Obviously, I know when we were doing it at our last place, we would fill up our freshwater tank. We had water bladders, things like that go in the bed of the truck, or we ran a hose, a huge hose all the way from the actual main building that had the spigots that were still running because it's an installation that obviously has toilets that run, and then ran it up, filled up the freshwater tank. But then we did our showers over at the gym, because you can always shower at the gym, which is a lot better, and you can take conveniently long, warm showers. Now when it comes to you actually being at the campground, you've got your vehicle and your rig all set up, you've already disconnected, are you allowed to park on the grass? How long are those pads in general? Can you physically have your vehicle or your camper and then be separated from your vehicle and still be within your actual space? Or do you have to be offset? Obviously you would know that based on the actual pad that they have there, but could you park in the grass? Also, with parking on the grass, a lot of people like to ask, can you have burn pits or a fire pit? Most installations do not allow fire pits. It's just part of base safety. Again, if you plan to do the winter living, we've done that as well too. I'll do that in another video. I don't really want to go into it in this because I ain't famous enough yet on YouTube, so I only get 15 minutes of talk time, and we'll hit that in another video, which is just like winter living and stuff like that. And hopefully I'll be doing that actually on location, not sitting here in my current house in Hawaii talking to you about things that I'm not physically doing, and just really going off my experiences. The last thing you want to just look into when it comes to the RV campground is what kind of amenities are there for you. I mean, do they have a walk path? Do they have a dog park? Where do they have areas that your dog can also, like doggy bags, things of that nature? I mean, with having a pet policy, can you have more than 2 dogs? Does it follow the normal base requirements for housing? Are there also breed restrictions in there too? You don't want to get in trouble by security forces because you have a dog that falls into the dog breed restricted list. Does the campground have a campground manager, or does it have a famcamp host? It may have both, but again, you want to know what that installation does, so that way when it comes to you actually moving in there, you don't have any problems. You can make sure you're getting the right word, or that someone can navigate you to your spot when you do show up or at later than normal business hours. Other than that, these are just some of the stuff as far as like preparing for that RV travel to your new duty station. And really, if you liked what you see, obviously I'm doing a lot of these videos right now trying to get this information out, because once we start the PCS move here officially for us, a lot of my stuff is going to be on location, actually setting up the rig, getting the airbags on my truck fixed, and then that way I'm ready to go for my own towing needs. And that, I appreciate you guys listening up to this point. If you've made it this far, thank you. If you like and you want to see more of these videos, please like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell, and that way you know when I do more of these videos. And then I'll see you guys next time. Take care.